Neat. Okay, so this is maybe one of my first monologues at home thus far, or me madre's home specifically, because your boy is mildly impoverished. Not as bad as others, which is something to be recognized and grateful for. But beyond that, I was listening to a song by the Doobie Brothers, Give Me the Beat Boys, as I'm sure many people are aware of. And it's certainly set off an attention towards, one, how music plays a role in expressing one's soul in some light, and actually a good portion of light. And that kind of trickled down into another set of associations, and one of those being like things that are exercises in grace and rhythm, which you could say is dance. And I made reference to exactly these three in one of the videos at work. Oh, forgive me, I gotta pause. Okay, I'm gonna try to resume this, hoping to regain where my thoughts were. I had to go meet that cool guy, and that disoriented my anchor point, or my chain of thinking, more precisely. I need to find an anchor point of what I was mentioning to return to that chain of thinking if I'm lucky. But what I do recall is the element or something to do with music, dance, and dialogue that plays like a almost religious role in I'll return to why I used religious as the connection there. But those three features to life, or activities in life, seem to almost fill your being with soul in a way, or they're an expression of your being having soul in it, or having a soul in it. Not to say we don't all, but some might be muffled down a little bit, for the lack of patterns of engagement within your life's journey that allow that form of itself to be expressed. So it might be layered over with responsibilities or something like that. Give me the Beat Boys. Yes. Okay. So there's the second time I guess I'm drawing information from a rock song. Well, second time I'm illustrating it, at least. I'll have to continue that on the next video. Video 2. I'm saying that as an introduction for it. One, assist me in arranging my sequence when I return to orient these videos, should I decide to end up publishing them. And 2, because I just left off video 1. That aside, damn, give me the Beat Boys. So I believe, as it's stated, I'm gonna have to look back. It's give me the Beat Boys to free my soul. Something rock and roll. I think that's a decent, maybe not metaphor, but allusion to how, if allusion is the right word, point towards, or a point to how music, rhythm, beat have this ability to permit your soul to manifest in a way. And this might be maybe just a consequence of evolution, as there's plenty of thinkers out there that hold on to such a notion. Yet it's odd how, in opposition to that, where at least in my own experience, or my own anecdotal reflections, it seemed as though when there was little hobbies or little appreciation for like the humanities and the arts were prevalent in my life, it was easy to, how'd you say, dwindle into a perspective of nihilism, which kind of is the understanding that in the grand scheme of things, our little presence here on earth, or in reality maybe, is in this material form is kind of the basis behind where these thoughts manifest, or ideologies manifest, is meaningless. And why I'm saying that, that's almost oppositional to these spiritual features to life, is how I'm going to describe it, is that spiritual is in connection to something beyond this material world, while if you're stuck in a state of nihilism, you're kind of narrowed down to an observation of there only being this material world, which therefore supports in the notion of, in the grand scheme of things, your minimal presence as a material being is pointless, and there's absence of meaning as your proof in order to hold on to that ideology. And it seems that the meaning can be found in these humanities. Okay, so I'm returning to two things I kind of categorized and set to the side in my first video, I believe it was, or I just went back and rewatched these videos to ensure that I wasn't majorly babbling. No doubt I am babbling. And those two things were responsibility and religious connections to music, art, race, and such. I'm going to start with the responsibility, because that's something I can just kind of knock out of the way, because I use that as an example to demonstrate something that might muffle down this source of soul. And I feel that it's almost an exact opposite of what may be a more appropriate source for soul. For I may not have arranged that in a great way yet. What I'm going to describe responsibility as, I'm not describing it, I'm more drawing it from a right now very popular figure that is, as I've mentioned in many videos, and I'll likely continue to mention, a great role model for me in life, or my favorite role model for me in life, or currently at the top of the list. Anyways, and he basically, Jordan Peterson, he basically he promotes bearing your responsibility, which this is in connection with this religious substrate to life, I guess you could describe it, as being the source, bearing responsibility, as being the source for meaning, or one of the major sources for meaning. And now, traveling back towards, first laying out that is, as that being a definition or as an observation or perception of what responsibility is and how it plays a role in life, I want to take that as no longer being a veil over soul. Maybe something else, maybe excessive responsibility, and that might be a little bit nearer to it for, oh Lord, I'm going a whole nother tangent that's going to maybe play a role in describing my definition of religious influence, I guess you could say, or a definition of what religion or religious influence may be in certain respects, as I've heard them and as I'm trying to think through them at the moment, which I'll have to continue in the next video. For I only got a 3-minute soundbite with old TikTok, so to be continued. Okay, so venturing down this one rabbit hole, maybe to Alice in Wonderland. That's a whole nother can of worms open up, but I'm not going to go there. And I've lost my train of thought. Great googly moogly. Yes, too much responsibility potentially being too much to bear in attempting to manifest one's soul, or permit one's soul to manifest out into their daily life, I guess you could say. And that too much responsibility would be, I guess, comparable to bearing too much of the world than you're strong enough to bear, which seems, if in optimistic, which, I mean, actually is reasonable, it's more than just optimism, but as life seems to progress, it seems that your ability to contend with the challenges of life excel as well. And I kind of referred to this a little bit in one of these other videos I recorded that I've likely not yet published, because I'm feeling quite excited to publish this one. if I can work the technological magic on old Instagram. Yes, too much responsibility can be associated as another way in illustrating how it may diminish one's capacity to express their soul. Can be seen as inviting too much stimulus into your rituals, I guess you could say. If you have rituals in the first place, for I believe we all do, but some might not be as narrow a path as others. For it seems that kind of diminishes, it dilutes the notion of ritual as you take on new behaviors too frequently, instead of narrowing down on a particular behavior in order to tune it in and be able to bear the challenges that come with that particular behavior. And I think that in a way illustrates that. But I think the one I was pointing to was this I think it was a Mind Valley talk. I can't recall exactly where I heard this from, but it seems to be like a fairly relatable to most people's understanding, as I understand them, of some type of representation. Jesus, I'm stretching too far out from the main point. A Shaolin monk. I heard something on I'm going to say Mind Valley talk that mentioned that a primary trait among these monks is, one, likelihood responsible for their peace and grace as they travel through life, and two, it seems as if it in a way represents the notion of retaining tradition in some form, or retaining unity among oneself, and that in respect to tradition being like a concept that, more than just a concept, a phenomenon that bears tradition from, or bears unity from generation to generation, unity of culture, however big that culture is, down to your family, up to your society. That aside, this trait of these monks is a strong exercise in boundaries, and you could say I'd say it's a fantastic connection to the notion of tradition, but I'm gonna leave that a little bit in the past. But just to make a little remark towards it, it's like tradition is a walled off form in some respect, because that's, in order for something to be unified, it has to sacrifice that which is around it. Doesn't mean it can't be progressed, and a new progression or tradition can be adopted, yet it's not the same tradition as the previous one. It's with its adaptations. And strong boundaries, that makes so much sense for why they may be a peaceful, graceful individual. For that's kind of the it seems the way in which you engage in life, where your path isn't overgrown with foliage and brush because you couldn't stomp or allow maybe seeds from surrounding paths enter into that path, and because you weren't spread out looking or permitting things from entering into your road, for the lack of a better term. So you have to take on the maintenance of ordering this path that you decide to consume. And as your boundaries increase, you almost narrow down your landscape to stomp on. It simplifies your life, which is why there might be a huge move towards like a minimalist movement, or at least it's gained a lot of popularity, which seems to have some kind of connection with Stoicism, which simplifies your evaluation of your challenges. Speaking of paths, I think I'm being much too far off of the one I've off the one I was trying to illustrate in the reason for returning to these recordings, and that was almost which is kind of illustrated a little bit, but the nature of religious influence. And it seems that as you, and this is a thought that impacted me so much from, or left such a big impression on me from how I've heard it from Jordan Peterson, and that's that the world is layered with patterns. And what these arts do, music, dance, speaking, I guess you could say. I'm not exactly too aware of yet of the portions behind speaking. I guess you could say, like, maybe if there's a flow going on, it's gestures. You could say gestures are kind of like an indication of how responsive each person is to one another. Beyond that, maybe not beyond that, but next to that, it seems that the capacity to work these, one, the capacity, and two, the maybe drive or the reward that's attached to these engagements with these patterns, or expression of these patterns in a certain domain, is that it may tune us in with a truth about reality. And that's maybe the layeredness of patterns that we seem to get a grip on. It's as if, like, there's a knowing that's there that makes more comfort or more engagement with your environment. And you can say this through sound, via music, through kinesthetics or bodily movements, through dance, and I guess you could say sound, but also like a degree of thought. Of course, there's a degree of thought in all of these things, but more so with if it's being done well, it's as if the thought may not be as difficult to arrive to, but it still needs well, let me think about this. Hold on now, I might have to backtrack. I could say they all share like this almost intuitive capacity to respond to the forces around you, and it's as if, as that intuition grows, that sensation of soul is more there, because it seems as though you're not holding the reins to your engagement with life. It's as if something else is almost assisting you along. And where to go from here?